Hey, welcome to Awaken Your Alpha. My name is Adam Lewis Walker, founder of the Awaken Your Alpha podcast and our weekly TV show. This week I'm going to talk about fear, because this is the number one destructive emotion in men, and most of us don't actually know what we're afraid of. So I want to start with a little story. When I personally find myself awake at night, it's not usually because the neighbours are up to a little bit of horizontal jogging. That has happened in the past, not now, where I am now, with detached houses, it's all good. But when I find myself awake at night, it's usually because of one thing: the fear. Fear to a man's soul is to a drop of poison is to a well of spring water. CHIN-NING CHU. So this is from one of my favourite books, Thick Face, Black Heart. Now it's generally not socially acceptable or business acceptable or entrepreneurial acceptable, whatever, to admit your number one fear. What it is, fear is a completely natural thing. We shouldn't look to completely eliminate it, but we don't want to let it consume us. Now the first stage of really action is facing your fears. Like, what are you afraid to do? You always hear that there's that common thing about do something you're afraid of every day. And obviously you're not going to do the world's highest bungee or something like that every day, but there's little things. We've talked about it before on the podcast and on the TV show about, facing things, eating that frog, doing things that you maybe don't want to do. Do you really want to help someone? What is that nagging feeling, that nagging thing in someone's mind that is almost like their 2 a.m. problem? They lie awake at night thinking about, it's really their fear, what it comes down to. The thing that used to keep me awake at night, and when I say used to, I mean does keep me awake at night if it ever happens, and it, sometimes more than other times, is the fear of not being enough. There not being enough for my wife, for my kids, for the people I'm serving, for the challenges that life throws at you, for the challenges I set for myself. Whether you've bitten off more than you can chew at this time, or you haven't bitten off enough, you're not doing enough, you're doing too much, that's the fear, that's the challenges that I find myself. And I'm sure if you're listening to the podcast, if you're in that kind of mindset, I'm sure I'd like to think that's a common fear, but do let me know. Now, having a bit of fear is a completely natural thing. Now when you are fearful of something, fear comes down to two key things: fear of success and fear of failure. Now the thing is, which is crazy, fear of success is by far the greater fear that people in general have. Far less people achieve the success they're truly capable of, so their fear of that is greater by the results in the world, ultimately. When I find myself too much in the fear zone and waking up too much at night, it's usually because I'm not taking enough action, or I'm thinking about things too much as opposed to doing. It's amazing how much a little bit of action alleviates that tension and really makes you feel better and reduces that fear. And it's ultimately facing your fear on a daily basis. It's not necessarily about doing these big grand gestures. That fear that grips us, that is a pure source of energy. If you let it, it can absolutely paralyze some people, but if you harness that power, it can actually lead you to a state of exhilaration and really can drive you. One little drop, it can completely overcome and pollute a man's soul. So if you find yourself gripped by fear on a regular basis, and that's consuming and you can't sleep at night, it's that waking you up in the middle of the night, that fear that wakes you up. If you have a genuine fear of something, use that to your advantage to drive you, to propel you forward, to give you some energy. Hope you enjoyed this week on Awaken Your Alpha. Please do share if you've got any value. Again, I'm still in the man cave. Like and follow, and please subscribe to the podcast. That's where we're going a lot deeper to all of these things. The book is still being written. Topics that I'm writing about that will be covered and in depth and with interviews in the book Awaken Your Alpha by the end of 2017. It's coming out. Please do follow, subscribe, and yes, have a great week, and I'll see you next week on Awaken Your Alpha.
Do it! Do it!